Joining us now with the latest developments on the end of the ceasefire is Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and a former IDF spokesperson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So a surprise attack by the IDF on Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip. What can we expect moving forward? And are we heading for a full ground invasion again?
Well, if Hamas continues to refuse to hand over hostages and to do so quickly and in significant numbers, which I think, unfortunately, is how Hamas will respond, then yes, I think it is likely, almost very likely, that Israel will be forced to expand its military operation, which will include continued and enhanced aerial attacks on Hamas infrastructure and targets, personnel and locations, and special forces and ground forces that will maneuver inside the Gaza Strip, searching for hostages and trying to launch hostage release operations, and of course targeting Hamas, their senior leadership, their infrastructure, and really their centers of gravity. I think that if that happens, then we will be seeing a very different type of Israeli military action, not like what we've become accustomed to seeing over the last 1 year and 2 months, the first year and 2 months of fighting. It'll be stronger, more decisive, more violent, more kinetic, and Israel will use many more tools at its disposal that Israel was prevented from using in the past.
And, I have to ask, what does this mean for the hostages now? The IDF has said it will not strike where hostages are being held. So what does this mean in terms of, once again, being able to eliminate Hamas?
Yeah, I think that I very much understand the concern and the grief and fear of families of hostages that see this Israeli decision as a threat to the well-being of their loved ones. We have 59 hostages left. 24 of them are still presumed to be alive, and each and every one of them must be returned home. And I can understand that the current developments are a source of great anguish for those families and that are waiting to get their loved ones back. However, I unfortunately also believe that at this current state, there's very little else to do. To continue with a ceasefire that doesn't bring any hostages home and allows Hamas to rearm itself and plan attacks against Israel and to consolidate and enhance their control over the Gaza Strip is a very bad and dangerous thing. And since Hamas has been emboldened by the Egyptian proposal, the Egyptian counteroffer to President Trump's directives, and emboldened by European support and Arab support, perhaps mistakenly, Hamas believes that if they just hold on for enough time, Israel's will to fight and spirit will be broken and they can get away with murder. I think that Israeli decisions now indicate differently. Israel is not going to allow Hamas to regroup and to stage attacks. And if the Hamas doesn't return hostages, then Hamas will pay an increasingly high price until it is destroyed. Will that mean that the lives of the hostages are at a higher risk? Sadly, probably yes. And that is the horrible, almost impossible situation that we find ourselves in. But going forward, with Hamas's refusal, I don't really see other options. I hope Hamas would be convinced of the severity of the situation and immediately release, as an act of goodwill, release hostages to show that they mean business. If they don't, I think we're going to war, and a different type of war than what we've seen in the past.
And can we expect the other members of the so-called resistance, Hezbollah, the Houthis, other militias in Iraq and Syria, to also start attacking Israel again? Are we looking at another multi-front war?
I'd be surprised to see Hezbollah return to fighting because they have a lot on their plate and they're not in a good strategic position. But you never know. I don't think that the Iranians have any assets left in Syria. And I think that the Iranian assets in Iraq are weakened and disorganized, which leaves us with the Houthis, who are under quite significant American strikes, but they still retain missile and drone capabilities. I wouldn't rule that out. I think that there's a high likelihood that the Houthis, even just for the sake of sending Israelis to shelters and sounding alarms in Israel, will make efforts to dispatch drones and fire ballistic missiles at Israel. If they do so, Israel will be forced to respond. And what I really hope is that Israel will change the strategy and the calculus when it comes to the Iranian axis of evil. And if any additional Iranian proxy strikes Israel, then that should be interpreted by Israel as an act of aggression by none other than the Islamic Republic of Iran. And then Israel should respond accordingly and strike the Islamic Republic of Iran.
So we know this attack was in full coordination with the United States. You know, President Trump has warned Iran, saying he knows full well the Islamic Republic of Iran is behind all of these attacks. Is a joint U.S.-Israel strike on Iran imminent, in your opinion?
I wouldn't say imminent. I think that there's still a preference for diplomacy and an attempt, perhaps a last minute. In soccer terms, we're on the 90th minute and the referee just announced the amount of overtime. And in baseball, it's the 11th inning, deep in it. And we're still looking for and trying to find a diplomatic solution to get Iran to open up inspections of all of their nuclear facilities, to disassemble all of their infrastructure, and to have it removed from Iranian soil, and to have a clear oversight of anything that happens in Iran. If they don't agree to that, and if they don't agree to it immediately, then I think that we are running out of diplomatic runway, and that the chances for such an Israeli or American or joint action against Iran is becoming more likely. I wouldn't say that we're quite there yet, but I think that the last days' actions and statements by the U.S. president definitely bring those closer.
All right. Well, Jonathan Conricus, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your analysis today.
Thank you.